Hey, what's up? Chris Martinez here. I am the host of Operation Agency Freedom, and man, do I have a great episode for you today. I've got my friend Billy Sticker on, and we are talking about one of the most taboo topics that everybody does not to talk about. We're going to be talking about religion and specifically the rise of Christianity in digital marketing. So, trigger warning for anybody who gets weirded out by this or doesn't like it. It's a very civil conversation, but I definitely ask him some very hard hitting questions. He and I are not on the same side of the aisle, whatever that means. But Billy is an amazing guest. He's such a good sport as I'm asking him all these difficult questions. He started out, he had a marketing agency for chiropractors. He still owns that agency. It's called Chiro Candy. And more recently, he wrote a book called The Blessed Entrepreneur, and he's got a mastermind group specifically for faith-based entrepreneurs called 818 Coaching. 818 Coaching. And so I ask him a lot of hard-hitting questions because I personally see some potential problems with this rise of Christianity in digital marketing and business. So we talk all about that. It's a much longer episode than normal. It's probably close to like an hour, but you're going to love this one. It's honestly one of the best episodes that I think that I've ever recorded. So check it out. So with that being said, let's head over there. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the show. I have got my good friend Billy Sticker here. He's one of the kindest, like big-hearted guys ever. Every time I see him, I always want to just give him a big hug because he's so nice. He has got three companies, essentially. He's got the agency, which is Chiro Candy, and then he's got his new coaching business that is 818 Coaching, and we're going to talk all about that. And then he also launched a book called The Blessed Entrepreneur, or Blessed Entrepreneur, I think is maybe how you pronounce it. All really, really cool products or projects, I should say. His agency is massive, grew really, really fast. So welcome to the show, Billy. Good to see you, man.
Chris, thanks so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be on today.
Yeah, and I reached out to you. For those that are listening, I reached out to him via text because I had a question, which is specifically about the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is kind of the rise of Christianity in digital marketing. And I was like, hey, man, would you be interested in going on the show? I don't know if you think this is going to be a little bit controversial or whatever, because we're talking about religion, and everybody else says you never talk about religion in politics. But he graciously took me up on my offer, and so he's here today. So Billy, why don't we start by just kind of giving us a little bit of your background, where you grew up, how you got into marketing, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
Yeah, so I actually grew up here in Texas. Um,
What city?
spent, what's that?
What city are you in Texas? I forgot.
We are in right now. I'm in the Woodlands, Conroe area, so North Houston.
Okay.
I'm not from this area. I'm from a small town in East Texas called Lumberton, Southeast Texas, closer to Louisiana.
Okay.
And I lived in Kansas City for a while, back in the early '90s for a few years. I was a youth
Mhm.
pastor at a church up there. And moved back down here, got married. My wife and I, this April, will be married 28 years. We
Nice.
have three kids. The older two are married, which Brady,
Hmm.
Brady. He and his wife, they actually have an agency also. My daughter and her husband work for us inside of Cairo Candy and the 818 coaching. And then my youngest son is 17 and he still lives at home.
Nice.
But got a background in ministry. We've done a lot of
Hmm.
ministry stuff over the years and always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but the majority of my career was spent selling rare coins, silver, gold, platinum.
I had no
Very,
idea.
yeah, very niche
Yeah.
industry. But it's actually pretty lucrative. You can
Mhm.
actually, you see these ads on whether you're watching, or listening to a podcast or watching a podcast or the news, they'll have, invest in gold.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
that's what we did. It was a company like that. And I just wanted to do something, for myself.
Hmm.
And there was several of these companies where I used to live and worked for one for about 7 years, then went to work for a different one and made a lot more money, but it was a horrible environment. Like they treated their
Mm.
employees terrible. There was so much pressure they put on us, and then we're putting on the clients. It was just a bad environment.
Right.
So I left and went to work for a chiropractor. He had multiple locations and was looking for somebody to come do all the marketing. So I go there, start doing that. and really fell in love with the profession. I didn't just, target chiropractors with my agency. I worked inside of an office and or multiple offices, and I just really, really enjoyed it. We doubled the volume of both practices, and so I started sharing what we were doing. Fast forward a few years, I launched a podcast, a marketing podcast for chiropractors. And then I started doing some like project work for different doctors here and there. And then that turned into the agency, which has now done over 10 million in revenue total.
What
Not a
year did you
year
start?
yet.
Yeah. What year did you start the agency?
That was 2015.
So we're going on 9 years now. Wow.
Yep.
Time flies. Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So like you didn't have, or how did you get the experience in marketing? Because, I kind of like taught myself how to build websites and then I learned about traffic and then eventually I had an agency. How did you kind of get into the marketing
Yeah.
side?
So
Yeah.
in 2007 and 2008 is when I was working in office for the
Hmm.
chiropractor. At that time, I also started studying internet marketing.
Hmm.
uh, Built a WordPress site and actually
Excuse me.
launched a podcast back then
Hmm.
for chiropractors, like
Dude,
2008.
that's
So we're talking
early. There, yeah,
early,
nobody was doing
early. I
podcasts back
wish
then.
I would have stuck with that one. I had about 6 or 7 episodes, and I got embarrassed and ended up just deleting them all. And then in 2015, when I relaunched the podcast, and then which turned into the agency, I rebranded. But I wish I would have stuck with the original one.
Okay, cool.
Uh, but it was during that time, and actually what I started doing at first. So how did I learn marketing? Is I was studying Dan Kennedy, and
Hmm.
I've always been a reader. Like you can see two bookcases, but there's actually three bookcases on this wall, and
Yep.
then three more on this wall, and then three more in my bedroom. I'm an avid learner. I've got all
Yeah.
kinds of between
Were
audio
you in
programs.
the GKIC?
Never did.
See, I
Uh,
was in that. That was like my introduction into marketing. Buddy
yeah.
introduced me to Dan Kennedy, and then I got involved with GKIC and so on and so forth.
Well, I did their couple of $100 a month program or whatever that
Yeah,
was.
that's what I
Like I
did.
did that. I didn't, I
Yeah,
was
okay.
never in their inner circle or,
Right, right. Yeah, I did
or
the cheaper version
okay.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I was in that. And I still have binders full of their stuff. And it's so good.
Yeah.
You can just pick one and just dive into it. And it's so much content. So yeah, I started studying that. So when I went to work for this chiropractor, I didn't have a background in marketing. I mean, I knew probably more than the average person on marketing because I'd
Hmm.
studied Dan Kennedy. And so what I did is I put together my resume and I wrote this 11-page outline for marketing.
Hmm.
And that's what I gave to the chiropractor. And he said he interviewed 8 people. It was 8 to 10 people. Everybody else had marketing degrees, but he kept coming back to that
Hmm.
that marketing plan that I put together. And so I ended up getting the job. And
Do you remember what was this for the salaried position working in the office or
yeah,
like your first? Oh,
yeah,
okay,
no,
cool.
this was a salary position. His goal was to open up more locations all over
Hmm.
Houston, and I was going to be over like it was going to be a pretty big opportunity. I was
Hmm.
going to be over all the marketing for all the different locations and all this. Well, we started growing both of the practices he already had,
Hmm.
and then he switched gears. He's like, let's just see how big we can get these. Well, that really kind of capped my opportunity.
Hmm.
Um, and so I ended up leaving, going back to work in the coin business just for a startup. And long story there, but two guys that I trained years before in the coin business branched off, opened their own, had a salesperson, brought me in as another salesperson, but to become sales manager and help them grow. Um, and we had an agreement. Hey, once we hit this much in revenue, I wanted to be a partner. I didn't want anything for free. I wanted to buy into the business, but I
Hmm.
wanted to work for something. I wanted it to be mine, or at
Right.
least part mine. And so we all agreed. We just had nothing in writing, right? It was all handshakes. And we start hitting these numbers that we'd all agreed on, and then they just never would hold up their end of the deal.
Hmm.
And so that's when I was like, okay. And I was making great money, but I was like, I got to do something different. I'm tired of working for somebody else.
Hmm.
And so that's whenever I relaunched Cairo Candy or relaunched the podcast and
Hmm.
rebranded it to Cairo Candy. And, um, and
Do you
that's what
remember
it
how
is.
you got your first client?
The
First
first,
Your first agency
agency
client. Yeah,
for
your
the
first.
first agency client. Yeah. So we were writing books for chiropractors is one of the ways I was kind of
Oh, okay.
monetizing things.
It's so funny. I
And
was doing the same thing at one point.
yeah, we were, which I didn't do it. I had a team that would go
Yeah.
through and one of our clients we wrote a book for, he just asked me one day, he's like, "Hey, can you do Facebook ads?" And I was like, "Of course." I never done a Facebook ad, and I'm
Hmm.
like, well, I actually had for us, but I
For
had not
yourselves.
for,
Yeah.
right. And, and he's like, "Man, I've tried. I can't get it to work. And my ad account got shut down." And this was back in 2015.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Tell you what, let's give it a shot. I won't even charge you anything." And this was a neuropathy office. So yeah, it
Mhm.
wasn't a regular chiropractor. He was a chiropractor, but he had a clinic that just focused on neuropathy.
Okay.
And they had incredible success. Um, yeah, so we run ads for him the first month. He had like 60 leads come in, which they're not all going to convert, but he didn't
Mhm.
need them to. His
Right.
case fees were $3,000 to $6,000 a piece, so he just needed a handful of them to come in. And then so that was the first client, and then he started referring people to us, and then it grew grew from there.
And then now, just approximately like how many chiropractic offices are you guys working with in Cairo
Oh, right
County?
now we're well over 200.
Awesome.
Uh, yeah, we've worked with well over 1,000. But this is a very bloody niche. Like
Yeah.
it's a bloody ocean. I would not tell people to choose chiropractic because they're getting a lot of people sliding into their DMs. Hey, we can get you better results. Now,
Of course.
fortunately, we sign up clients every single month that are returning,
Hmm.
right? They left and then they came back.
Okay.
And then we have clients that have been with us 6 or 7 years. So it's a difficult industry, but we've done a good job, planting our flag here. And fortunately, I get to speak at a lot of the different events. I was in Vegas this weekend speaking at
Mhm.
one of the largest chiropractic events they have. Um, so yeah, but it is a tough niche.
Well, now you've got some success in Cairo Candy, and so last year I think it was last year when you started 818 Coaching, and you released your is it your first book, The Blessed Entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's just blessed entrepreneur.
Blessed. Okay, I didn't know how you
Yeah,
say it. I wanted to say it
no,
the
that's
right way.
okay.
The
Excuse
Blessed
me.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah,
So that came
I
out
did
last
it, and
last
it's not.
year.
Yeah, it's not my first book. We've got a
Okay.
couple other books. I wrote one on leadership years
Hmm.
back, and we did one on marketing for chiropractors. As a matter of fact, I have it right here too.
Hmm.
But this one, the purpose of this book was really more uh, for the church. Like I've got a heart for the church. Some people that are, Christians and they're in business, they're really trying to bring the gospel to the marketplace. And
Hmm.
hey, that's okay. I get it. I never want to be preachy. I just want to be able to be me.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I feel God told me is he's looking for Christians and believers who are going to be faithful with their finances, that he could download business ideas and blueprints in favor.
Hmm.
They'll go out and, start these businesses that'll help fund the kingdom. I mean, because there's a lot of work. Like we have one of our big mission projects we do work with, or we sponsor monthly, is deep in the bush in Africa, and they're
Okay.
doing incredible works there. And I just love that we get to do all this. I have no desire to go. I don't want to do the things that they do, but I want to be able to, support what they
Donate.
do.
Yeah.
So the
Financially
purpose of this,
support.
yeah, financially support. So the purpose of this book was really to kind of break through that mindset. There in the church, there's this idea that there's something pious, if you will, about being poor, right? It's like you can't have money. Well, no, money's not
Yeah.
bad. Greed is bad.
Yes.
The only since we're kind of talking spiritual stuff here, really the only person that benefits with us being poor is Satan, right? Is the enemy. Like if you the money's a magnifier. If you're a giver, you get more money, you're going to give more.
Yeah.
If you're a partier, you get more money, you're going to party more, right? Yeah, so it's just going to magnify who you are. So I wrote the book. It's kind of broken down into two halves.
Hmm.
First half is really wrapping your head around this idea that it's okay to be successful. And then the second half of the book is what I call the P5 formula. And it's just 5 steps it takes to launch and scale any business. It's what we did with Cairo Candy. It's what Brady and Sarah did with Church Candy.
Hmm.
It's what we help our coaching clients do. But it's not just for agencies; it can be for any business, and that's kind of what the book's for.
And then that eventually led to 818 coaching. Did you know that 818 coaching was going to come out of the book, or is this something that also just kind of
Well,
organically happened?
not necessarily. Yeah, it's like I wanted to do coaching for Christian business owners.
Hmm.
And then it kind of morphed into I just automatically started attracting agency owners. I'm kind of known in that
Yeah.
world. And so I just the coaching clients that I was getting, I mean, I've had work, I've also worked with some attorneys and some people like this one lady that does um, school. She started a school for autistic
Hmm.
children.
Hmm.
And it's really incredible. So, like, I mean, we've had different clients from different things, but really, my superpower is helping agencies scale while
Hmm.
working part time.
Got it.
4 or 5 hours a week. How do you scale to multiple seven figures? Uh, so 818 actually comes from Deuteronomy 8:18,
Hmm.
which says, "Remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." God doesn't give us money. He gives us the ability to produce money. And it's frustrating to me. And there's people listening that have probably heard this before. It's normally a pastor talking about giving and shares some story how they gave superficially and then they received this check that they weren't expecting. And okay, I get it. That's what we would really call grace. That's not sustain. I mean, could God sustain you on grace? Yeah, he could, but that's not his plan. I believe that God has given everybody a gift to go out and serve people. And that's what he's wanting you to do. God's currency isn't the US dollar. God's currency is wisdom. And there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom also. Knowledge is just information, right? We have our phones. We have all the knowledge we can ever need. Wisdom is applying that knowledge. And so that's God's currency. He gives us these ideas and then he's looking for us to go out and actually do it and do these things. And if we serve enough other people, then the money, that's just a byproduct of how well we serve others. So that's really my heart is like, how do we go out and serve?
Now, everything that you just said in some circles, in some Christian faith or sex or whatever, sects or whatever you want to call it, is very controversial. I mean, there are a large number of Christians that believe in the misquoted Bible verse that money is the root of all evil,
Right,
but it's really the love of money that's the root of all evil, right?
right.
Right. So even what you said right there can be somewhat controversial. And I will tell our listeners, Billy and I do not share the same faith. I think he's an amazing guy. And this is something that everybody should do is just like be friends that are with people that are different than you. Listen to them, like get their opinions because this is what this country needs by all means is for us to reach across the aisle and just connect with people that aren't like us. But you and I do not share the same faith. I am not religious at all. I grew up in a born again Christian household, which was essentially a cult. So I've seen how people can use religion to manipulate other people to do bad stuff, right?
Yep,
That's my experience with it. Now, as an adult, I've met many other adults who are or they are Christians. They consider themselves Christians, and they're amazing people. So that has changed my perspective on what it means to be a Christian. But you have to admit that what you're saying can be looked down upon by other people, right? Like that does happen.
sure.
Yeah. And what is your response to those Christians?
Well, first off, I don't see where money is bad.
Yeah, I don't see it
And
either. I'm on your side 100%.
I don't like even in the garden. Here's a great thing. In Genesis, God says that there's gold in the garden and gold was good.
Hmm.
Okay, why was there gold in the garden? There was nothing for sale. There was no merchants. You didn't need to go buy anything. It was all provision. Like everything you needed was there. Why did you
Yeah.
have to like it was I think it was providential, right? And if you look at all of the great pillars of faith, they were all entrepreneurial. They all had their own businesses. And I think it's this mindset which stems from the Roman Empire kind of coming
Yep.
like the beginning of Catholicism.
Hmm.
There was a lot of some of these Roman ideologies that came across is that it's good to be poor, poor in spirit and stuff like that. Well, okay, but I don't think God has an issue with us having money. He doesn't want money to have us.
Yeah.
Like, what is your master? And going back to what I said earlier, if I understand my heart when I'm saying this, if I was God and I'm planning this whole thing out and I'm looking down, I want people to be blessed who are going to go out and love on other people,
Hmm.
who are going to use it for good. And like I'm looking for those people. So I was making, when I was selling rare coins,
Hmm.
I remember this is even before I was in management, before I went to work for the chiropractor. Um, at the time, I was making around $70,000 a year. A
Hmm.
couple of guys I worked with, they were making 100, a little bit more, and straight commission. So that's my goal, right? I want to be able to do that. And so I write down, $100,000 and some other things. And there's actually a scripture in Habakkuk 2:2 just says, write the vision down so he who reads it can run with it. And, we talk about doing these goal setting exercises. That's kind of where it comes from.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I write this down and I'm just like, all right, God, this is my heart. I'd really like to be able to accomplish. I start kind of praying over this list. And my experience, this is me. It's almost like I felt God put his arm around me and say, okay, Billy, let's talk about this $100,000. And with my background in church and everything, I even was raised Catholic. Uh, I was like, all right, God, I don't want to be greedy. Like, if I would rather be poor in your will than wealthy out of your will. So, like, if my cap is 50, like, whatever. And I felt God say, you have this your goal to make a year. I want to challenge you to make that your goal to give away a year. And I remember thinking, I've never made that much in a year. Is it possible to give away that much? Well, yeah, there's a lot of people that do that.
Hmm.
So that became my goal. And I actually forgot about it for a long time. And then, we started the business and we were just very generous and faithful with our tithes and offerings and things like this. And we were looking for opportunities. How can we sow and support these different ministries and stuff? And then I went back and remembered that about that happening that day. Um, but it's one of those things where you really don't want to tell people, right? Because it's like that's something you should kind of do in private. But I got convicted and kind of felt God saying, "No, I need people to catch this vision.
Hmm.
Like this is what we want people. Like we need people to go out that's going to be able to support the kingdom." And so that's really where kind of my heart came from, in that. Um, And so when people hear that, most of them are like, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. The problem with this mindset that money's evil, it's an excuse that people use to not reach their potential.
I mean,
Like
some people, do you agree that some people are inherently evil?
100%.
Okay. So
Yeah, yeah,
and I believe that that number is very small. Actually, this is a question I should ask you later on, but I believe that the number of people or the percentage of human beings that are inherently evil is very, very small. But
agreed.
we do have
Yeah,
to acknowledge that there are people who are evil who acquire money or inherit money and they do evil stuff, right?
sure.
So it is possible that if somebody has money and they're evil, that they will just perpetuate more evil in the world. Agreed?
Agreed. Yep.
Okay. So with that being taking that into consideration, I'll let you continue where you were saying.
No, it goes back to, money's a magnifier,
Yeah.
and that person's going to be evil whether they had money or not. But the problem with that is some people say, yeah, I'm not going to be successful because money's evil.
Hmm.
Well, okay, but even right now, typically the person, especially like here in America, saying that, let's say they're making 80,000 a year or whatever, even maybe 100. Well, worldly standards, that's pretty wealthy.
Oh yeah,
So how
absolutely.
much is too like because we all say we want, you know, we want to be as healthy as we can. We want to, but we can't be as wealthy as we can. Like it's like we want to have great relationships. We want to be healthy. But we don't want to be too wealthy because then, you know, pe- that's just bad.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe that there are some people that will start judging you, for that. You start accomplishing a lot. Um, and that's just part of it, you
Yeah.
know. It's like,
Well,
well, that's
yeah.
were you really my friend to begin with?
100%. Haters gonna hate, right?
Yeah.
Um, so the reason why I wanted to have you on the show is what I see happening, and this could be me being in a different algorithm as some other people, but I see this rise in Christianity in specifically in marketing, right? And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think that there could be there are some concerns that could come up, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about. Now, in your experience, like so you when you started this business, the 818, you were attracting a lot of people who were what I believe is a more common term is faith-based entrepreneurs. I
Right.
see that term a lot more.
Sure.
Um, are they typically coming to you because they want business help, or is there something specific, or are they just attracted to you because you're more forthcoming with your religious beliefs, or like what is kind of the catalyst to engage
Well,
with those folks?
so for that, I want to be very careful. And one of the things we started talking about before we hit record
Hmm.
is this idea of using God to sell,
Yeah.
right? Uh, and I don't want to do that. Like I have a big, uh, you shouldn't do that. However, I want to attract the type of people that want to work with me.
Hmm.
And so I don't want to be fake. I don't, if you're offended by the God stuff, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not, asking you to do business with me. I just want to be able to attract the type of people that I can still just be me with. But the majority of the people that I'm attracting are people who want what we built, right? And that's really what you should do in life anyway. If you were to ask me what would I do to start over, if I, 8 or 9 years ago, what would I do to start back over? Well, I would find somebody who's built the type of business that I want, who's living the type of life that I want to live,
Hmm.
and I would pay them whatever they needed to teach me how to build what they built. And so I think because of just our heart and then the way we do live and we vacation once a month, we take a
Hmm.
trip somewhere. We've built a great lifestyle business. So people want to know how we do our business, how we structured it, how we grew it as big as we did. Uh, and then also I think they are attracted to the ministry side of the faith-based side of that too,
Hmm.
which is really where I want to focus on. I
Right.
want to help. I want to create an environment where people can come together and you know what, we can talk about God and we can talk about running an agency. Like we can do both. And
Hmm.
we're not going to, I'm very, very involved in our church. We're actually on staff at our church.
Hmm.
And there are a couple of business owners. There's no agency owners.
Right.
I can't talk about that stuff there. And then I'm in some masterminds and stuff. That's where you and I met at one. And there are some people there that are faith based, but that's not necessarily a place where we're going to go and talk about that. You know, we did a live event here just last month, and we actually did praise and worship. Like we
Hmm.
did prayer. But it wasn't, we didn't surprise anybody with it. Like it was known from the beginning. Hey, this is what we're going to do. Like this is
Well, yeah,
just
that specific event was marketed to faith-based
the
entrepreneurs.
faith-based agency owners. Yeah.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Now, you're not the type of guy that jams it down your throat, your religion down somebody else's throat. It's very natural. Like, and you're just a very calm, presence in general. I am seeing in other entrepreneurs. Let's just take. I don't know if you know who Patrick Bet David is.
Yep. Yeah. As a
Very,
matter of
very,
fact, the event that I spoke at this weekend, he spoke at in
very
Vegas.
divisive with a lot of what he says.
Yeah.
Right. Very like this is the line in the sand. You're either a Christian or you're not, and that's bad. Right. Where you strike me as somebody who's much more open to all people, including myself. Um, do you see any other problems with people like a Patrick Bet David, who are essentially what I consider to be drawing a line in the sand and creating more division amongst people with under what I would call the guise of religion?
Yeah, I actually like a lot of what he says.
Hmm.
Um, my filter that I try to live by and is we're called to love God and love people. They actually tried to trick Jesus and like, hey, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, love the Lord your God. And then he said the second one is like it, love your neighbors yourself. They didn't ask him for two, they asked him for one. But if you sum all that up, we're supposed to love God and love people. Period.
Hmm.
Like that's what we're called to do. And I believe we serve God when we serve his people.
Hmm.
And so whenever you have a business or you have some kind of idea, if you are not going out and using that, you're not serving people. And there's another story in Kings where the Queen of Sheba goes to Solomon, and he was known for being this incredibly wise ruler. And leaders from all over would come and pay him gold and livestock and all this to learn from him, to gain wisdom. And she made a comment, and so she goes and she's kind of studying under him, if you will. And she's like, God loved Israel so much that he made you their king. And basically, what that's saying is God loves people so much, he gave you a business idea, not for you. We think our businesses is for ourselves. N- Our businesses is to go out and serve people.
Hmm.
Like there are a lot of chiropractors right now. Like there's one off the top of my head that he referred like 4 or 5 people to us in the past 2 days. And he's been with us for 5 or 6 years, but he will straight up tell you we saved his office during COVID. He
Hmm.
would have shut the doors if it wouldn't have been for us. And there's other stories like that. But that's the kind of people we're called to serve. And
Hmm.
so when you go out, you focus on just serving people, you're just loving people. I'm not called to judge anybody. I'm called to love people.
I
And
hear,
that's so going back to what you're saying, that's just where I fall in that. I'm just going to love God and love people, period.
yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think the danger in any religion, not just Christianity, is the abuse of the religion in with the goal of perpetuating somebody's own personal agenda. And this is
Yeah.
where I see this happening in the United States, at least, because I'm only, watching entrepreneurs typically in the United States, where they are saying, if you're a Christian, you're my people. If you're not a Christian, you're not my people. And they're using that to try and attract, to try and make more money.
Yeah.
How does that sit with you as somebody who is a faith-based entrepreneur?
That's that's tough. Because
I don't see it being that tough though, man. Like,
no, well, no,
I
no,
think
no,
it's wrong. I
well,
think
no,
it's
no, no.
wrong. I think it's wrong.
It does hit me wrong.
Yeah.
It does hit me wrong. That's what I'm saying. It's tough. It's not like a tough decision. It's like I just wouldn't frame things personally. I wouldn't frame things
I
that
know
way
you wouldn't.
because that's not who I
I,
am.
and that's why you're on the show because you're a great
Yeah,
human being.
yeah,
But the problem that I see again is that there are people who say that they're Christians or say that they're faith-based entrepreneurs, and they're using these tactics to divide and conquer,
yeah.
using religion as the
I just
foundation.
I don't like the whole division thing to begin
Me
with.
neither.
You
Me
know?
neither. But it's happening. So,
Yeah,
like I was just hanging out this past weekend with a really, really great friend of mine, Alan. He's a CFO of a publicly traded company, went to Harvard Business School, way smarter than me or you. And we were talking about the same conversation, this rise of Christian nationalism, essentially, white Christian nationalism, believing that the United States is a white Christian nation and how divisive that language is. And, he's a Christian. He goes to church every single week. He's very, very vocal about his faith. Like we prayed at dinner and all that. Like he is a great human being who also is by his opinion, maybe not from other people's, is a great, is a Christian, a devout Christian. And we also recognize that there are some people that, in my opinion, based on my readings of the Bible, are not following God's word, right? And to me, it's very, very dangerous, especially when people can't see the difference. You kind of see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, yeah, I do. And all I know is, I want to be careful not to judge people,
Hmm.
right? I can definitely not agree with their approach,
Hmm.
um, and just make sure I try to learn from that, right?
Hmm.
I want to make sure that I'm not coming across that way to the people I'm trying to attract.
Yeah. I mean, even the term faith-based entrepreneur, to me, it's a little bit misleading because it's not just about it's not about other faiths. It's primarily about the Christian faith, right?
Right. Well, and that's kind of like speaking our language, though. You know what I'm saying? Like the person that's going to be attracted to that is typically going to be a Christian entrepreneur because they know what that means. Does
In
that
the
make
United
sense?
States. I mean, I don't know what the translation is in India, for example, or,
Yeah, and it may not be the same,
in a
but
Buddhist
typically, if
country or
somebody's using that, it's like you want to call out your audience by speaking their language.
Mhm.
If you're saying faith-based, you're not saying anything against any other faiths,
Mhm.
but the majority of the people that are going to be attracted to that are going to be Christians because that's typically the verbiage that's been used, or kingdom focused
Yeah,
entrepreneurs.
I mean, I don't know why
That's going to,
I have no problem with the term faith-based entrepreneur. I think that it could be argued, or I'm making the argument that it's actually not faith-based. It's more Christianity-based, and I don't know why that didn't become
well,
the term.
one is it's hard to run ads when you say something about
Is he gonna
Christianity.
get it flagged? Facebook's gonna
Yeah,
flag it.
well, as a matter of fact, you can no longer even target certain Christian influencers and stuff in your Facebook ads.
Like who?
Like for example, let's just say Joel Osteen or some
Yeah.
of these big
Who
Christian.
I've read one or two of his books. I actually
Yeah,
admire that guy. I don't
so do
see
I. I
yeah,
think he's great. Some people give him a hard time.
a lot. Yeah, he gets a
He
lot of
is not.
flack.
Yeah, no, I think he does a lot of good. Um, but for example, him or like some of these big worship Christian music groups or
Hmm.
worship groups and stuff, you used to be able to follow people who liked them. Well, you
Hmm.
can't do that anymore. Um, it's like their Facebook's so weird, and
Well, I mean, they've changed the targeting on a lot of things. I don't
yeah,
know if eliminating the, going that deep on eliminating faith-based targeting is that, or Christianity-based targeting, or any type of religious-based targeting is bad or good. I don't know. Who's to say? Because if
yeah.
you look at any category, they've made it much harder to target people. So maybe that was
They
just
really have. Even with
fallout,
chiropractors. I mean, I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. For years, it's been easy for us to target chiropractors because there are specific colleges that only teach chiropractic.
Hmm.
And so we would just put in these list of colleges.
Right,
And if somebody said they went to school there, they're a chiropractor. And that was our audience. Like it was so easy. Well,
right, right,
now
right,
they took that away. You can't do that anymore. You can
right.
only target people that are interested in those schools, which is typically probably going to be a chiropractor. But yeah, it's weird what they do with targeting. But going back to what you were saying, I think the faith-based, it's just something that Christians use that's
Hmm.
not quite as maybe divisive as, Christians. But I know for me, like I want to attract Christians, Christian agency owners,
Hmm.
but I also know in, running ads and stuff that that's one of those things that can get you at
Yeah,
least shadow banned,
even with there's many, many jokes. I think it was in a Monty Python movie or something like that, that the Christians all believe a little bit differently, there and some of them don't even believe that Jesus was the Son of God, or like you look at Mormons, it's a little bit different, and then Catholics have all the saints, which if you look in the Bible, you're not supposed to worship people, right? And these are human beings. So you grew up Catholic. I was not Catholic, so I don't know all the details. Is there anything that you that he is there a sounds funny? Is there a metric to gauge how Christian somebody is, or if they are the right type of Christian? How is that differentiated?
Eh, I don't know.
And it's
That's
hard
not
for
up
you
to,
because you're working with
yeah.
Christians.
Yeah, but and that's not necessarily up to me to decide for anybody, you know. And that's one of the things, even in the podcast we do for chiropractors and stuff.
Mm,
I talk about my faith.
yeah.
I want to be in a situation where I can just be me,
Mhm,
uh, and so that's going to attract some people, and it's going to deter some people.
mhm.
And I'm totally okay with that. So I do understand your question, but as far as for me to answer how Christian is Christian,
Are there ethical standards that apply to the people that join your group, for example? Like I had a lot of problems with a certain person that introduced us because we were very conflicted or different on our ethical standards of what should be permitted inside of a marketing group or a mastermind group, I should say. On your side, are there some things that a Christian, somebody who calls themselves a Christian, could do, which you would then be like, yeah, we're gonna have to kick you out of this group? Have you, I don't know if you've ever even thought of that.
that's,
So I know I'm putting you on the
you
spot
know,
here.
yeah, we haven't. Really the only way I can see that being an issue is if I think when there's a cancer in a group, I want to be careful because I'm not just saying sin is a can. I'm not saying, I'm just saying sin is sin, whatever it is. Um, but if there is some kind of bad apple or something negative going on,
But what does
my
that look like though?
responsibility
I
is
mean,
the group of a whole. What's that?
of course. What is an example of something like that? Like what could be an example of a bad apple or something negative that's going on in the group?
If there's somebody that high-fiving each other and they're bragging about how they really took advantage of a client,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a problem with that.
Yeah.
You know,
As you
I'm gonna have a
should.
problem.
Everybody
Yeah,
should, you know?
absolutely. But
Yeah,
if
but
if they're like really trying to promote, hey, I figured out a really good way to game the system and get people to say yes to this, and then this
mhm,
is what we're really doing. Like, oh, I kind of have a problem with that. But I also know somebody who runs an agency for the chiropractic in the chiropractic space. All of his team is VAs,
mhm.
and he brags about how he pays them so little.
Yeah. I know
And that's one
somebody
of
who
those
does the
things
same thing.
where it's like, I mean,
I've heard people who are
I don't.
who call themselves Christian. I've heard them say racist things about the people that work for them.
That's an issue.
That's a problem, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think you mentioned
Yeah,
that Brady is married to a gal whose
a
family's
Latina.
from,
Yeah,
yeah,
Salvador. Yeah,
El Salvador. That's what I thought. Right. So, like, it's part of your family now.
yeah. And then my son-in-law is Mexican. Yeah,
Okay. Like, those are things that are happening inside of a Christian, what's the word that I'm looking for? In
environment.
the umbrella, underneath
Okay.
the umbrella of
Yeah.
Christianity, these types of things are happening. And not that I ever doubted you for a second, but I'm so glad to hear you say that you're on the right side of history, basically.
Yeah.
Um, the bigger problem that I see is it's going to take more people like you to stand up to those who are underneath that umbrella of Christianity and are essentially kind of ruining it for everybody else. In my adult life, I've met way more Christians like you who are great people and don't try and take advantage of others and are honest and kind and good and loving. The fact of the matter is that there are people who are taking advantage of others and being discriminatory and doing bad stuff. I don't see enough of the good people like yourself standing up to those that are essentially not living by God's word.
Yeah. And I've actually seen that too, where sometimes it's somebody who maybe they've kind of been greedy, they've cut corners and
Mm-hmm.
stuff in life in general, and then they do have an encounter with God, right? They become a Christian, but yet there's still some of that old nature where they're still wanting to take advantage of people, but yet they're wearing this cloak of Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still some issues there, and that is a problem,
This is where
and
I think
that's
you and I
where
differ because I think that those people have learned how to manipulate others using Christianity.
And that
right?
may be it
They
too.
know enough to be
But
dangerous, and they know how to target people
excuse me.
that are easily
And
manipulated. Maybe they're desperate, they're looking for somebody, some help
and
or
they're
a
using
savior. Yeah,
that's where the greed comes in.
absolutely.
Like they're using this because they're greedy, and
Hmm.
these tactics won't work. Let me try to to use the God card to see if I can close more business.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with that. One of my bosses years ago, um, he made a comment about this is back when we still had phone books.
Hmm.
In the plumber or whatever that had the fish on his yellow page
Hmm.
ad.
Hmm.
Uh, I get it, and to me that never really bothered me. But this buddy of mine who he's incredibly successful, he owns multiple businesses,
Hmm.
and he's like, I kind of have an issue with that. I was like, really? But you're a Christian. He goes, yes, but you should be able to just run your business without having to tell people you're a Christian.
Hmm.
Like this is almost trying to get people to use you because you're a Christian. He goes, I don't know. I want to be careful never to use God to sell. And that's how he said it. And it really stuck with me. Now, it's different whenever you specifically have a Christian coaching company for agencies or a
Yeah.
coaching company for Christian agency owner. That's a little bit different. Um, but yeah, I have a problem in general using God to sell.
Now, I'm so glad that you brought this up, and we're kind of going to close on this question. I am absolutely going to give you a little bit of time to talk about 18 coaching because if people are listening and you're looking for somebody and you're connecting with Billy, absolutely reach out to him. But I do want to kind of end on this question is like if it if it comes to a point where people are overtly using their faith, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, whatever the faith. And now we're creating more tribalism where they're saying, I'm only going to work with the Christian chiropractor. I'm only going to work with the Islamic chiropractor. I'm only going to do business with I was going to say Jewish doctor, but that is a joke in and of itself. I'm only going to work with the Jewish baker or whatever, and it starts to divide us even more. Doesn't seem good, right? It seems like that's a very perilous point to get to, right?
Yeah, that's actually a great question because I think sometimes you want to do business with people that are
Absolutely.
like you,
We say this all the time.
but
Do business with no people who they know, like, and trust.
no, like and trust. Right. I think the problem is whenever you're specifically, it's one thing to, hey, I want to work with these type people,
Hmm.
but for you to say for certain, I am not going to work with you because you're not one of these people.
Yes.
I think that's where the problem comes in. It's like, look, ideally, this is the people I want to work with. And if you're still attracted to that and you still want to come in and you're not one of those people, well, I still want to love on you. I still want to serve you. Right. Um, I think that's where when you start specifically saying, I'm not going to work with that person and they want to work with me, sometimes those people don't want to work with you either.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I do understand your point, but
Like let's just take the extreme example that's happening right now, Israel and Palestine, right? Like
right.
it's a freaking mess. And it was what's ironic is that in college, I went to school for sociology and we had a whole course, 10-week course on Israel and Palestine. And the professor was one of the most well-known people in the world for his research on Israel and Palestine. At the end of the day, he's like, they're never going to get along. You just have to build a gigantic wall because they're always going to fight. Because not both of them believe that in order for their God to come back to Earth, they have to completely occupy that little piece of dirt, right? So, but at the end of the day, like right now, people are looking at Israel and Palestine and lines are being drawn and they're saying, like, if you support Israel, you're a horrible person. If you support Palestine, you're a horrible person. Those lines are intersecting with business. And I guarantee you, I don't have documentation on this, but I guarantee you that people are not doing business with each other in the United States because of Israel and Palestine. This is a problem, Billy.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we, sane people, you're on one side, I'm on another side. How do we help bridge this gap?
I don't know.
And
I
that's a
just,
totally okay answer.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It goes back to love God, love people.
Hmm.
I don't care who you are. I still want to love on you. Right. if you're personally, with my faith, I'm on the side of Israel. But that doesn't mean I don't love people from Palestine, right? Does that make sense? Like I don't hate anybody, and
I
I
think
still
that
want
you
to.
can like, well, this is not news. You can be anti-Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization, right?
Yeah, and that's
You can
that's
be
probably more
anti-Hamas. I can
not
also look
anti-Palestine, right?
objectively at the things that Israel has done to Palestine and be like, yeah, that's pretty fucked up. Like, I can't
Yeah.
believe that they've been putting these people through this for decades and basically terrorizing these people for decades. If you have ever read The Art of War by Sun Tzu, one of the
Hmm.
things that they say is you never put somebody into a corner. You always give them a way out. Because if you put them into a corner, you will incur such heavy losses. Give them a way out. And that's how I see what's been going on in Palestine. The people of Palestine, those who support Hamas, they're misguided. I mean, some of them are just bad human beings, but they kind of also didn't have anywhere else to go. It's like we're starving. They're taking our land, which we feel like in our religion we have to keep just the same, as passionately as Israel is on the other side. And so there was no other option. And I'm not saying that Hamas is good by any stretch of the imagination. Hamas should be removed from the face of the earth for all time. But I can also, as a human being, I can understand where the Palestinians are coming from. I'm kind of digressing back into more philosophical conversations, but in general, I think it's going to be up to people like you to help unite folks and, like you said, love on folks.
Yeah, that's fortunately, you know, I'm not called to work specifically over there to help solve this problem.
Yeah,
I just pray that it does get solved. But I'm with you. I mean, this has been going on for thousands of years.
thousands of years
Yeah,
since
and so
Muhammad and Jesus.
yeah, and for them to think that you know that we're going to be able to, so yeah, it's tough. All I know is I'm responsible for what God puts before me,
Mhm.
and I want to do the best I can to be faithful with that and to love on and serve the people He puts in my path to serve.
Yep.
So
Well, Billy, you've been an amazing guest, and I appreciate you being
thanks,
vulnerable
Chris.
and answering these, what I consider to be difficult questions. I've never had a conversation with anybody like this on my podcast before, so I'm so appreciative to have you here. Um, if somebody is listening to this and they want to connect with you and learn more about 818 coaching or Cairo Candy or get your book or whatever, just follow you. What's the best way that somebody can reach out to you?
Yeah, what I would probably recommend more than anything is joining our Blessed Entrepreneur Facebook group.
Okay.
Just go to Facebook, look up Blessed Entrepreneur, you'll find the group. Um, and I do a lot of free content in there. I
Mhm.
teach on. It's a lot of Christian based, faith based, kingdom focused.
You can still call it faith based.
Yeah.
I'm just asking
Oh,
you
I know I
questions.
can.
I
I
know.
know I can. Uh, but it's a lot of stuff. It's not just for agencies. Well, I actually teach a life group through our church.
Mhm,
It's kind of how that group started. There's probably 400 or 500 people in there now.
mhm,
But it actually started as a life group I taught at our church on
mhm.
business and the Bible. And then it's kind of grown from there. But I am still pretty active in there. And then that's probably one of the best ways to keep abreast of what's going on. And then you can also go to 818coaching.com, and we're still working on making some changes to the landing page there. But
Love it. Awesome,
yeah,
brother. Thanks again for being here. Everybody who's listening, check out Billy. He's the man, great human being, somebody that you definitely want to model your life after, even if you're not a faith-based entrepreneur like me. It's just a good dude. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next episode.
thanks.
Hey, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to the podcast and also share it with friends, family, and basically anyone you know who will find the same value in this episode as you do. So, to get the latest from me, then let's connect on social media on the Facebooks at facebook.com/dude agency or Instagram at dudeagency.io. Then you can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and even TikTok. Yes, I'm that cool. We are on TikTok. Finally, go to our website at dudeagency.io, where you can see all of our other episodes of Operation Agency Freedom, register for live trainings on how to run a highly profitable agency, and you can see exactly how we help marketing agencies fix their operations and scale to 8 figures and beyond. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.